Hello, everyone. Today we're going to finish taking notes on the Protestant Reformation. So, as we saw yesterday, the Protestant Reformation was a time when people were challenging the Roman Catholic Church in Western Europe. Northern European thinkers were influenced by humanism. So, what we'll find is that the Renaissance was really something that occurred in Northern Europe, mostly in Germany. And so, as the ideas of the Renaissance, such as this focus on humans, their potential, and the questioning that went along with it, and with skepticism, those ideas spread north and they heavily influenced people there. This should be a review from yesterday. Three major criticisms that thinkers had of the Catholic Church were that the church was too worldly, it was too involved with wealth and political power. Their second complaint was that uneducated priests could no longer provide services to the people, like education and healthcare. Please remember that this was something that the Roman Catholic Church provided for people, and it was one of the things people were willing to pay their tithes or taxes to the church because of these services, and those services were not really being provided. And they also felt that there was too much money being spent on war and art. And so these were criticisms that people felt very strongly about. Then along came Martin Luther. Martin Luther was trained as a lawyer, but he became a monk. He felt that he really needed to dedicate his life to religion. He had a very strong background in law and how to work within the system of the church, however. He was very upset by the idea of indulgences. Okay, so when you indulge in something, you sort of give into it. And the Roman Catholic Church taught, and still teaches actually, that you can avoid punishment for a sin by sacrificing something, and that's called an indulgence. Please write this definition down on your worksheet next to where it says indulgence. If the video needs to be paused for that to happen, please go right ahead. So he was very upset by the selling of indulgences. He felt that it was like cheating, that the rich were being excused from their sins and were basically paying their way into heaven, and the poor were not able to. And so, excuse me, he was very upset with that. But there were several things that he was upset with. He wrote his complaints down and sent them to the church. They were called the 95 Theses. Those ideas spread very quickly because of the printing press. And you can see a picture of the printing press here. It's a reminder from last week. The full 95 Theses did not necessarily spread, but Martin Luther wrote smaller versions and smaller letters that he made public and were printed and distributed throughout Northern Europe. Because of this, he was excommunicated from the church. So excommunicated means you can no longer communicate with the church. Okay, he wasn't killed. He was just kicked out. And so the church said, you are no longer a part of the church. And most of the time, people would believe that that meant they were going to hell. But Martin Luther took that and said, okay, well, I'm going to start my own church. So what were some of the main ideas of his church? The first was that salvation was based on faith alone. So the Catholic Church taught that you needed good works and to do good things and to follow the teachings of the church to get to heaven and to be saved. And Martin Luther said that was not true. He said you just needed faith, just to believe. He also thought that the teachings of the church should be based on the Bible and nothing else. The Catholic Church said that if they had been doing something for hundreds of years, if it was a tradition of the church, then that was a valid teaching. And he said, nope, if it's not in the Bible, it's not something that should be taught. And because the printing press allowed more people to learn how to read and to learn what was in the Bible themselves, this was a very powerful argument. He also said that all people with faith are equal. So in the Catholic Church, Catholics believe that priests are closer to God than regular people, and then bishops are even closer than priests. And so by the time you get to the Pope was very, very close to God in a way that a normal everyday person was not. And Martin Luther said that that was not true, that anyone could talk to God and everyone could achieve salvation, that it was not necessarily the priest's job to determine that. A lot of his ideas were spread using the vernacular. So if you turn over to the back of your worksheet, you'll see this Freyer model for vernacular. Vernacular means local language. So it was the local beliefs, or excuse me, the local language that was spoken in an area. So for example, in Germany, it was German. In Spain, it was Spanish. In France, it was French. Typically, the Catholic Church did everything in Latin. He, as we saw in our video, translated the Bible into local languages and was also wrote his ideas in local languages in the vernacular. And this meant a lot more people were able to understand what he was saying. And once the Bible was translated, he was also able to communicate with them about what was actually in the Bible in a way that they could understand it. We're going to fill out this Freyer model so that you understand what the vernacular is. This is a word that you'll want to know and understand. It would be a great piece of outside information in terms of essay writing. Okay. Okay, Martin Luther was not the only person who attempted to reform the church. He was the original and started the Protestant Reformation. The other was John Calvin. John Calvin followed Martin Luther. He wanted to bring order to the teachings of the Protestant church. His teachings turned into the Presbyterian Church and also the Reformed Church here in the United States. He was from Switzerland, what's highlighted in orange here. He had two main ideas. The first was predestination. So he said that whether you go to heaven or hell is predetermined and seen in your actions. So the Catholic Church and most Protestant churches would say, at the time, said, you will go to heaven if you do good things. And what John Calvin said was, well, God already knows if you're going to go to heaven or hell, you just need to fulfill that. So if you are doing good things, it's because God has chosen you to go to heaven. So it had already been determined. That was a very different idea. He also started a theocracy in Switzerland. So that's what's highlighted here in orange on the map. A theocracy is when the religious and political leaders are the same. So he applied some very strict teachings. Since he taught that if you did good things, it meant God had chosen you to go to heaven. The laws were based on everyone doing good things. And so he banned things like gambling or drinking or dancing. The theocracy did not last too long, but he did have a very significant effect on the teachings of different Protestant branches. And then our last Protestant leader was King Henry VIII in England. You can see the notes here in that he was a king who needed a male heir. The church would not let him divorce, so he started his own church called the Anglican Church, and he became the most powerful person in that church. So the king controlled the Anglican Church, not the Roman Catholic